This segment is brought to you in part by the Canadian Historical Arms Society, owners of the Genesee Range, the premier recreational sport and training facility in Western Canada. See us online at historical-arms.com.
The Quiet Professional, a podcast about law enforcement, security, justice, and politics. We are digging deeper on the issues and going where the information takes us with access to experts and authorities. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everybody, welcome back. Nathan Romas with you. Today we are going to be talking about operational fitness, some standards and expectations for law enforcement. For that, I have Patrick Szpak on the program. Pat is a physical training instructor with the Edmonton Police Service, where he is responsible for the physical development of sworn members, recruits, and several of the specialty units. Prior to this role, he was a strength and conditioning coach in various professional sports leagues, from the National Football League to Major League Baseball. He even had a stint in the NCAA. And he also has a master's degree from the University of Denver with an emphasis in strength and conditioning. So welcome, Pat.
Nathan?
I guess we'll kind of start by just talking a bit about you, how you got into this role, because you've been to some interesting places. The EPS did a profile on you. And then I think a lot of people wonder, how do these people end up in Edmonton of all places? So if you want to kind of take us through a little bit of your journey, how you got to where you are today and some of your education in there.
Yeah, so it's kind of been a bit of a whirlwind. I'm originally from Ontario, went to University of Ontario, born and raised. Was a collegiate track athlete at the University of Guelph. Had no real idea that strength and conditioning was a career path. This would have been in the early 2000s. I was very fortunate in my time at university to meet some individuals who were strength and conditioning coaches and worked in the profession kind of early on in its infancy in Canada. And that really springboarded me into that level of interest that, hey, this is something I could do. So when I finished university, kind of neat, was recruited by the Canadian bobsled team, moved down to Calgary, spent a couple of years competing for Team Canada, where I was really engaged with our staff at the Canadian Sport Institute, so working with national level coaches. And that's really where it took off for me. So once that finished, the next step was, where can I get an opportunity? Where can I start this career path? And it wasn't very easy. Being Canadian, it wasn't something that was readily available across the country. So being from Windsor, Ontario, just across the border from Michigan, I started reaching out to some universities and to some programs to say, hey, I'm interested in getting into this line of work. Do you have any opportunities? If not, any recommendations? And one of the first ones I reached out to was University of Michigan, and their staff reached out back to me, interviewed, went and met them in person, and then was brought on in an assistantship type role, where I spent the 2012 and 2013 seasons at the University of Michigan working with their Olympic sports department. So in the NCAA, you have football and then you have Olympic sports. So Olympic sports is every sport except football. They kind of separate it, and it's kind of an interesting model. So I was very fortunate to work with a wide variety of athletes early on, with some great experience working with some highly regarded coaches. And when I was there, one of the things I was told was to chase experience, not opportunity, because opportunity is great, but the experiences you get from it might not suit you or help you develop. So for me, I wanted to pursue experiences that would allow me to actually kind of get my hands dirty and be able to work and impact individuals, not just fold towels or kind of watch in the shadows. So after my time at Michigan and through the contacts I made, I was fortunate to get a position with the New York Jets. So went from being in Ann Arbor to getting in the car and driving to Florham Park, New Jersey to join the New York Jets, which again, unique opportunity, but from an experience standpoint, gave me kind of another level up and a new platform to progress from. And again, just leaned on my contacts and did a really good job of getting my name out there, being Canadian, being one of the few Canadians working in the States at the time, especially at that level. One of the contacts I made was with the Toronto Blue Jays. So again, reached out, they had a posting, applied, and at the end of the 2013 NFL season, they reached out and I was offered a job with the Toronto Blue Jays. So back in the car, moved down to Florida, and started working there. So that was, again, another unique opportunity. So it started just organizationally. So Major League Spring Training, Minor League Spring Training, I coordinated the development programming for the organization, which was kind of neat. Worked with players across the board. And having been there in the 14, 15, and 16 seasons, making some pretty deep playoff runs was a pretty cool experience.
Mm-hmm.
And again, being able to work with some of the players that you now see on TV, Vlad Guerrero, again, was an opportunity, but again, it provided the experience that let me have that direct hands-on opportunity. I wasn't really chasing a specific job. I wanted something that engaged me every day. I loved working in sports, but it became a bit monotonous at times. For me, that's not for everybody, but for me, it did. And
in the major leagues, like in the major
just
leagues,
across the board,
okay.
just sports in general. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but I wanted more.
Yeah. Okay.
Working with baseball players was great, but it was the same kind of thing every day. The same players, the same thing in the weight room, the same thing out of the weight room. And it was just kind of on repeat. 7 days a week, 16-hour days. It really weared on you. So
Wow.
Eventually wanting something with a little bit more work-life balance, something that, again, allowed me the opportunity to gain more experience to continue growing as a professional, is what I was looking for. And a position came up with the Edmonton Police Service. And at the time, I had a brother-in-law who was a member. And that was a draw because my wife, and knowing her family was here as well, was kind of nice to be able to go somewhere new finally and have some sort of a connection. And I applied. The job didn't have a ton of information outside of what was online, and went through the interview process, took a red-eye flight out to Edmonton, met everybody in person. And then 2 weeks later, packed the car and we drove out to Edmonton. And in 2016, I started working for EPS.
Very cool. Man, when you're down there and you're working with those sports teams, like you were down there for quite a period, but are you just down there for the season? Like you don't have to worry about getting citizenship or nothing like that?
No, so they get you a work visa, and a lot of times it's just called a P1. So it's an entertainer type visa. It's what they give players and people who work in professional sports. So it's something that's renewed. It's renewed yearly. The team takes care of that. You send them your passport photos and any other documentation that you fill out. They submit it to the government. The government processes it, and then they just send it to you. You get it approved at the border, and away you go. And then you just have to have it on you every time you cross the border when you're with the team.
Okay, very cool. You know what? It explains a lot, because I also wondered how like entertainers and some of these people go down. They're down there for a while, and you're like, yeah, I just wondered what kind of visa, or if you're working towards some sort of citizenship, what that actually looks like. Very cool. So your experience now, so you're with the Edmonton Police, and has most of your work from this point on been with police services, or have you done anything with other first responders? I know fire has a component, and we kind of connected through a prior podcast I did with some of the standards around fire fitness. But is there anybody else that you've had some involvement with? Any other job types?
So primarily for me, it's been just law enforcement. I've been fortunate to engage with other individuals who work in fire and talk to people in EMS and other areas within corrections. But me personally, I have yet to really work in those realms or with anybody in those areas. Strength and conditioning, fitness, however you want to slice it within kind of that first responder setting is very unique. And there are a lot of barriers. There are a lot of limitations, and it's not as accessible as most people think when you compare it to other worlds, sports, private sector. And there's just not a lot of people doing it.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, we'll definitely get into all of these here. What I'm wondering, maybe just to start, we'll talk very broadly, like a Canadian perspective. What are you kind of seeing out there for what the standards are, what people are creating for programs? Like, you know, and if we want to compare and contrast to Edmonton, I think that would be beneficial. Sometimes people don't want to talk about their employer, so that's fine, but we can talk in generalities. But Canada-wide, like what are we seeing? Police service to police service, is it super fragmented? Are there people doing absolutely nothing? So what have you seen out there?
I'd say it's kind of all over the place right now. There are a handful of services across the country and organizations that have individuals like myself and my coworkers and our supervisor who are strength and conditioning professionals, fitness professionals that are ingrained fully to support sworn civilian operational members day in and day out. But again, it's far and few between. So I was fortunate to present at a conference in Ontario in November for the Police Fitness Personnel of Ontario. So that's a body in Ontario that is affiliated with the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, and its president is the current fitness quarter at Peel Regional Police, who's been there for over 15 years, Mike Mallon. And Peel's had a unit for quite some time. They're one of the originals in Ontario, as is York Regional Police Service. And the PFPO is overseen by fitness and wellness professionals, the few that work across the province at municipal services. So when you look at Ontario and just say Alberta, you have EPS and CPS, you now have Grand Prairie. Each one of those services has one or more strength and conditioning or fitness professionals to support frontline operational workers.
Okay.
Lethbridge College has a recruit program as well. So most of the municipal services, not all, but majority, especially the larger ones, have some sort of program. When you look at Ontario, from what I've come to learn and understand, is there's over 50 municipal services across the province. And out of those 50 plus, there's about 6 that have an individual in place that's a certified professional in strength and conditioning or fitness to support operational members. So not a lot. But the ones that are there and are functioning do a very good job. So Peel's been very long-standing. York Regional Police. Toronto has 2 members who do an outstanding job with a very large service. OPC has 2 individuals. Jordan Barber is one of the leads there. The OPP has a smaller unit. But again, when you're looking at the number of services compared to the number of individuals being employed to support frontline workers, it's very, very small.
Yeah.
RCMP has units across the country. In each province, they have a couple staff members. But again, small amounts of staff to support a large number of employees. And it becomes a bit spread thin when you're looking at how you can really impact those individuals working the front lines.
So when you talk about support, can you explain that for people? Because I have an idea of what you do, but maybe others don't. Maybe even actually people within EPS who've never actually reached out or anything. They just think it's the fitness test every year, but you guys do a lot more.
Yeah. So obviously, like you said, we do our mandatory fitness assessment every year. We work with our recruits. We work with our specialty units. But outside of that, we work with reintegration. We assist members returning back to work, whether it be from critical incident or injury. Members returning from mat leave, we do individualized programming and support for members. So if they were looking to improve their cardiovascular health, their strength training, or just anything in between, we are there as the primary resource to support our members, sworn and civilian, with whatever their fitness, wellness, or personal health goals may be. And then outside of that, within our branch, we have occupational health and safety. We have OH&S nurses. We have various psychological options available that we can rely on to support our members across that spectrum of wellness. So it's not just hey, come and work out with us. There's a large degree of options available for us to support our members in whatever they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like if you don't offer it, then you can at least point them in the right direction or connect them with the right person type stuff. So when we're talking about just kind of back to the topic of Canada, it's very surprising actually. You're saying so there's like 50 services in Ontario alone, maybe 6-ish have actual supports for this. That is way lower than I thought it was. I thought at least every service would have one person, just one at least, to help in this realm, because it does seem like a very critical thing. What are you seeing for the membership side? So sworn members, the ones going out on the front lines. I'm wondering, what does the fitness look like overall for them? And is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Because if I was to compare it to, I guess, society in general, all you see is, well, we're just getting more overweight. We just eat more sugar. Nobody sleeps. Like, it doesn't sound good for society as a whole. But in policing, is it a different story or is it kind of the same?
I'd say it's very service specific. So when you look at a service like the EPS, who's had a culture of fitness since 1980, and our record board at headquarters, as you know, goes back to 1980. So fitness is very ingrained in our culture. And from the data that we collect year in and year out, for the 8+ years I've been at EPS, our members are very fit, not only compared to the general population, but from the limited information you can gather from services across the country or other professionals, our members are very fit, and it's pretty cool to see. Not only just from a general like push-ups, pull-ups, plank, but when you look at body weight and BMI and obesity rates, like our membership is coming in a lot lower than what the general population is and other large scale services are. And I think that plays a lot to the culture that had been created and instilled over the last 40 plus years at EPS. And as members move through rank and chain of command, making sure that those pieces of culture stay in place where other services get rid of pieces of that because somebody doesn't see benefit in it because it's more of a subjective belief as to why are we doing that? Like it's not helping. But when you look at other services, so in Ontario, because they're so limited with resources, they function on a peer fitness model. So much like our fitness assessment, Ontario, the PFPO, they have a PIN test, which is similar to ours. It's component based. You get a score per component. And because so many services don't have a professional in place to administer this, the PFPO runs a PIN appraiser course where they certify sworn members. So majority of the services across Ontario have sworn members who have been certified to administer the PIN test to members within their service. And from what I've come to learn is they have insurance and approval through the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police for their sworn members to only deliver the PIN test. So if a member at a service does their test and scores poorly or to a degree that isn't adequate for them, but that service doesn't have a qualified resource to then provide them programming or support, they now have to go outside the service to some other resource, gym, professional, and hope that that person's going to support them in a manner needed to not only improve their overall fitness and well-being, but in a manner that's going to support what they need operationally, right? So very different where here, the RCMP, Calgary, Grand Prairie, you have individuals in place where a member completes an assessment, notifies us because there's a concern, and now we can work with them directly. They don't have to outsource or go anywhere outside the four walls of our service. So I think that creates a bit of a difference too when you look at organizational fitness, because you're not trying to support it in-house. It creates a large spectrum of health and wellness and fitness when you look at first responders, because some are just going to say, I'm not paying, I'm not going, it is what it is, I'll take it. And then a small percent will then invest the money and the time to go and find those individuals to help them.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue, for a lot of people, especially when it comes, you got family and stuff, it's like, well, when am I going to get the time? Now I got to go drive somewhere else and then I got to pay someone else. But if it's in-house, it's like, well, this is all available to you and all you got to do is ask. So it takes away a lot of those barriers to that. Speaking of that, maybe just talking about some of the barriers that there are to implementing these. Like, so if there's only 6 out of 50 services in Ontario doing this, and then whatever else the numbers might be across Canada, why are they not implementing this? And I know you mentioned culture is a big one. I think that is probably, a start for sure. But are there some that just don't want to do it for whatever reason? Have you ever heard anything else besides, culture, that maybe they don't believe in it? But what else? What other reason would there be?
Sure, that's the case. I'm sure there are services that just don't see it as a priority. And one of the primary barriers that we see in a lot of things are funds, financial barriers. When you look at the cost associated with hiring and you try and create positions that match similar positions across the country in law enforcement, fire, whatever it may be at the fitness professional role, a lot of services will look at that and go, is that money better spent elsewhere? Mm-hmm. And I feel a lot of times it comes down to financial limitations or the willingness to spend the money when we can just put a gym in and say, here's a gym, go work out.
Yeah. Go watch some YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Something.
Right. So to say that people don't care, I think that might be a stretch, because I feel everybody that works in law enforcement in some sort of leadership position wants their members to be fit and healthy, because fit and healthy means less dollars spent on WCB. It means more boots on the ground. It means more bodies on the street. Mm-hmm. But again, I think a lot of the limitations are financial when it comes to hiring or creating programs to support frontline workers. Because again, it is a long-term program that you would be putting in place with long-term financial implications.
Okay. On the programs themselves, so I know, we here at EPS, we would test push-ups and pull-ups. We do the plank. But we do that like just in our gym clothes. Has there ever been any thought to changing that where we're actually wearing, say, what we wear on the street and then do the fitness test? So it's like, I'm trying to think, how do you make it as realistic as possible, as close to the job as possible? I know the Mounties, I think they switched theirs recently, and I believe they wear their belt while they're doing some of the stuff. I can't remember if they wear body armor while they're doing it, but just what on that, I guess, like what is it that goes into creating these tests? Why do we pick the measurements we do? What's all the decision making around that process?
So when you look at our fitness, I'll call it an assessment. I hate the word test because test has a negative connotation for so many people, and it creates barriers when people think they're being tested.
I still have nightmares from university. I still wake up going like, I got to write a paper or something. And I'm like, oh, that was like 20 years ago.
So our assessment is component based. So we're talking about getting a gauge on an individual's baseline fitness. It is not occupational in nature. It's not a bona fide occupational assessment. So for us, we want our members to come in and give their best effort on their assessment, because each component provides some insight into their current level of fitness. We know that grip strength is tied to cognitive function. We know that the Leger beep test is tied to cardiovascular health. So we use our assessment as a means to identify a yearly baseline for our members to then go, okay, this is your current level of fitness. These are some red flags. How can we work on improving that? Because by improving A, B, C, and D, not only are we going to make you stronger, fitter, and more resilient, we're also going to impact your overall health and well-being. So that's what our assessment does. When you look at something like the RCMP and their new police fitness test that they had just come out with, that's considered a bona fide occupational requirement. So they spent several years doing job reviews, assessments, data collection, testing to create a battery of tests that determine one's suitability for work. So that's the difference between component testing and occupational testing. It's really hard to look at a component test and say, how many push-ups do you have to do to be deemed a competent police officer? There's nothing out there that says, is it 10? Is it 50? Or is one enough, right? So for us with our assessment, it's baseline fitness. It's component testing. It has no correlation to the job.
So do you know why they switched theirs to that though? Because they used to do, it was the same kind of components that we did.
They used to do the pair. So the RCMP used to function on the pair test. So their new police fitness test, which is their obstacle course, and it has a few other parts. There's a 500-meter run, I believe, some pushing, some pulling, some lifting and loading. That replaced the pair test that they used to use, which is similar to our A-Prep that we use for applicants to get hired. So those are bona fide occupational tests. They've been researched and validated. They've been approved by human rights councils as the minimum amount of fitness or whatever you want to call it to do the demands of police work.
Okay.
And that's kind of where you get into that sticky patch of going, well, they did 4 pull-ups. So is that good or bad? Well, from a population standpoint, it's probably pretty good if you're a 30-year-old female or a 50-year-old male and you can do 4 pull-ups. But from a job standpoint, it doesn't provide us really any insight as to if they're going to be capable of doing the job. The only one we really have that provides us that information is the beep test. So with the applicant test that we do in Alberta, the A-Prep, applicants have to run to level 7 on the beep test, which is approximately a 41 or so VO2 max. That when they created the prep test in Ontario and validated it and researched it and created their standards, determined that that was the minimum capacity needed to do the basics of police work. So because we now have a standard that's been deemed a bona fide occupational requirement, in 2002, it was supported by the Ontario Human Rights Council. We know that that test is not discriminatory, and those are the basics for police work. Anything above and beyond that really becomes an onus of the service to ensure that their members are physically prepared to deal with whatever may come.
And that had to run through the human rights?
I think so. Over time, it didn't have to run through it. I don't know all the details with regards to legality. This was way back when. So most of the tests, so you have the APREP, the PAIR, the COPAT, the POPAT, the new police fitness test. I mean, there's so many tests. Most of them were created in the mid 80s, early 90s, many, many years ago. And a lot of the research, not always easy to find, or the protocols that they created are easy to find. But I do know that in the 90s, there were some legal challenges. And one of them was BC based, and it was a firefighter who challenged the new fitness test being implemented in BC. And one of them was an aerobic test, if I remember correctly. And they had failed one of the 2 or 3 tests. So because they failed, they were actually fired from their job because the province said that they were no longer suitable to do the basics of firefighting to whatever degree that was. So that was challenged in court. And that really created the standards to which bona fide occupational tests have to follow to be created. So the test has to show that it correlates to the job. It has to show that it's like sufficiently meeting standards for that occupation, right? So there are standards that have to be met in order for a test to be deemed occupational. And that's a very long, expensive process.
So, and maybe just because I'm not quite 100% understanding. So why would the RCMP though, why are they not doing it? Well, like, why do they get to do the occupational one? I think that's right. And then we're doing the component. Like, if it's hard to tie it to a job and say, well, you have to do, I don't know, however many lifts or however many of this thing. How come they're getting away with that, or how are they able to say that, but we don't? So what's the difference there?
So the RCMP worked with the Canadian Forces Research and Development Department to create their new test. So they used to use the PAIR, and from what I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I think they used to have, outside of depot, members used to run through the PAIR every 3 years. They used to do a PAIR test in a cycle. And from what I've come to understand is it wasn't mandatory, and a member could not do it if they chose not to, but there were kind of no repercussions. It was what the service did to have a field test and then a test for kind of new recruits. They wanted to create a test that covered a little bit more of the job based on new research, new demands. A lot of their members work rural, work in very remote places where the things they're required to do might be a little bit more intense or physically demanding than municipal police officers who are working on sidewalks. So I believe that their leadership, their general oversight determined that there was a need for like an update or an upgrade. And that's a federal level. So that's very different than provincial municipal policing. So in Alberta, for EPS and CPS and Lethbridge and Grand Prairie and Camrose, we follow the standards of the APREP, which is overseen by the Solgen, which I believe they have a new name, and I don't know their new name, but the Solgen mandates and works with the Alberta Association of Chiefs of Police to identify that APREP is the minimum standard for police applicants. And because we know APREP, or the PREP, we call it the APREP because now it's Alberta. The PREP is from Ontario. It's a bona fide occupational test that's been recognized and deemed non-discriminatory by Ontario Human Rights Council, that we can use it and justify our use of it and the standards that are associated with it when it comes to hiring. If we were, or the province wanted to change that, they would then have to go through the process, much like the RCMP did, and hire researchers to basically revalidate or recreate the test through analyzing the job, doing research and data collection, making sure every gender is accounted for, making sure nothing is discriminatory, and then going through trial periods before you could implement said test as your new bona fide occupational requirement. And you're looking at potentially 2+ years of time and $250,000 of funds to revamp, revalidate, or create a new test. So very financially cumbersome, a huge burden. and not something that people are readily available to get into, especially municipal policing, when you don't necessarily have the same funds as federal agencies or federal police services.
Yeah. Okay, one other question on the standards and stuff, because I find these conversations fascinating and kind of digging into why we do what we do. I know this is a question that's come up a ton, so maybe more people will get the answer by listening through the podcast. The purpose of the annual test, and with EPS, and I imagine it's with other services, it's not that you don't have to meet a certain standard. So like if you get the lowest of the low, like the beep test, some people just go 0.5 and then just walk off. It's not mandatory. So why do we have it if it's not really serving, I guess it serves a purpose if you care as an individual, but for the service itself, it's not mandatory that you have to pass or get to a certain standard to be operational. I believe that's correct. I believe I'm saying that right. So just why is that? Like, why is there no set standard? And it's like, if you can't do, a 3 on the beep test, you can't go on the street. Like, we're not firing you, but you can't be in these job types or something. So why is that?
So again, component testing doesn't necessarily correlate to the job. So for as long as EPS has had an assessment, it's been fitness-based, individual baseline fitness. And yes, it is a mandatory test. It's part of compliance. If members are non-compliant, it could impact their ability to put in for assignments.
Mm-hmm.
And there are repercussions that come with it. There's nothing that's punitive. Like you said, no one's going to get fired. No one's going to be demoted rank. But there are implications from an employment standpoint in terms of your ability to progress and to be able to compete for positions and opportunity. Because if you're showing non-compliant on mandatory testing, then obviously that's going to kind of push you out of that pool. With regards to the punitive piece, saying you didn't meet standard A, so we're going to take you off the street. Again, it becomes can you show that there is a standard that if they don't meet it, are not suitable for the job?
I guess maybe I'll jump in real quick there. I'm just thinking like, tactical, you have to meet certain standards to get in there, but we can't find a way to equate the standards to like the job of a patrol officer.
So when it comes to patrol and it comes to hiring, so if an individual passes the APREP, the province says that they're fit for basics of policing. So then they get hired, they go through recruit training, and the first step is patrol. So we're saying that they've met the standard to be hired into patrol because they passed the APREP. And at that point, they're now deemed patrol fit. What members choose to do over their career, that's their own personal choice. Mm. But if we were then to, on the flip side, say, if you don't meet a score on a certain component, you're off the street. We would have to be able to justify that score correlates to job performance. And B, if we started taking members off the street, it would impact frontline operations, which for anybody in policing knows that services are hard pressed right now. We're trying to find people to hire. We're trying to put boots on the street. And if we start taking people off the street because we subjectively think that they're not doing a good enough job to meet the demands of the job, it becomes a very slippery slope. And then that's where you can get into some legalities of being challenged or grieved, because you have to then take that onus and say that 8 pull-ups is the threshold. Well, how did you come to that? What was determined in that process? When you look at a tactical unit, those are specialty units within the service. So no matter the service or the organization, the onus still falls on them in those hiring processes or those promotion processes to show the testing battery correlates to the job. So one thing that's really unique with EPS is our service goes above and beyond to bring in outside professionals that do job demands analysis for us. So we have a demand analysis for patrol, for tactical, for canine, and those individuals come in and they follow those members. They do ride-alongs. They get a gauge of the entire spectrum of the job demands, and then they create a document that says these are the mins and the max of the basics of the job. And when we look at, say, a unit like tactical with their process for hiring, obviously tactical handles operational testing because that's their purview. That's not my scope of practice. I don't do it. That's not my job. But when we look at component testing or fitness testing within those processes, we try and use that demand analysis to create a battery of tests that correlate to the demands of the job. So if I was to look at this test and to look at the job, it would have some pretty good face validity because I could look at it and then look at the job and go, yeah, you're going to do that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get into some challenges is when you start to rank order tests. So when you start to say the fastest person gets 20 points and the slowest person gets 1 point, right? When you start to rank order, that's when you really have to show that the testing battery correlates to the job.
Okay.
And that's the hard part in any aspect of testing in any service or organization, is making sure that what you're assessing your members on actually correlates to the job and provides information for you to determine the most suitable candidates for those roles.
Okay. Maybe we'll kind of speak in much broader scope right now, because one of the conversations we had, you had said you'd gone down, I think it was Virginia. Virginia. And you were talking to somebody down there and they were surprised that we had any fitness testing at all. So you want to talk a little bit about your experiences, like maybe just what you've seen outside of Canada and what people are not doing out there?
Yeah. And when we talk about tactical strength and conditioning, it's something that hasn't been around for a long time. If you ask a lot of people, working with first responders directly with organizations, it's been around like 20, 25 years. Like that's kind of a commonplace, like late 90s. When I came to EPS, I had no idea that they've had a unit in place since 1980. And people balk at that idea. Well, this hasn't been like, there hasn't been a tactical person around since 1980. Well, maybe they weren't a tactical professional, but they were a law enforcement fitness professional. Dr. Dave Wiles, who started at EPS, created the program, built that Hall of Fame, built that culture. And when I go to conferences and I talk to other individuals who are south of the border, to them, it's mind blowing that we've had something in place for 45 years. We have a long-standing culture. We have organizational support. We have 15 plus fitness facilities. We have a recruit performance center. We have VO2 testing labs. These things are mind-blowing to individuals who work at U.S. services. I met an individual who worked at a Southern U.S. police service, and when they took over their job, the fitness facility was circa 1980. Equipment was old and rusted. And they had asked for a budget, and they were given a $3,000 budget, and they were $3,000 budget, and were told that it had to stretch over 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Because funding is very different across the board. And even my coworker, we had presented at a conference in Las Vegas in 2023. And in his talk, he spoke on the salary differences between Edmonton and just Las Vegas, Nevada. And it was mind-blowing to people. The support first responders, police officers are given financially and from a fitness and wellness standpoint north of the border. It's unheard of in a lot of places in the US, especially to have component testing like we do, or fitness assessments to provide baseline support to our members and have a data pool that we have. It's something that, again, is not done in a lot of places. And I'd like to say that EPS is the trend setter from what I've come to learn. So Winnipeg Police has a fitness assessment. They base it off of ours. And a lot of services across the country that now have programs or have developed programs that have been around for 15, 20, 25 years, a lot of those were based off of what EPS started doing back in the early 80s, because it was one of the, if not the first services to really kind of put that foot forward and say, we're going to support our operational members with fitness programming to make sure that they are the best versions of themselves and that they can serve the community as needed. And it's pretty cool when I get to talk to other individuals and present at conferences, and people are just blown away at what we offer, but to the degree that we've been offering it for the amount of years that we have.
You know, and well, even within Canada, so prior podcasts, I've had some guests talk about the numbers up here of just how many services we have. It's like roughly 180 across the country. And then you go to the US and it's approximately 18,000. And every single one of them sets their own standards. And then maybe some states set standards, others don't. It's left up to individual services. Like, it's the most fragmented structure you could possibly have. It's pretty crazy. And my experience is in talking to some people that are down there trying to make these changes down there, whether it's physical health or mental health, like whatever the supports are. Yeah, it is few and far between, and it's like a full on fight to get anything, especially around the funding. Um, However, it's structured down there compared to up here, it is vastly different. Um, do you see like is there anything that you would say in the overall conversations you're having um, that you think is missing? Like you know when you see somebody saying something and you go like, yeah, you're asking the wrong questions or you're missing something completely. Any of that kind of come to mind? Anything that you think people should know about that you haven't seen as a part of the discussion yet?
Not really. Everybody kind of knows what they need and they know what needs to be put in place. And it's just a matter of finding ways to put it together, write a briefing note, push it up the chain to get people to read it and to buy into it and see it as a need. So a lot of individuals, a lot of services, especially those south of the border, those individuals that I know who I've met, they're just working with the resources they're provided. And again, it's just an uphill battle. Everybody knows what's needed, what the necessities are, and how to support their operators. But until they get it, they just have to work with whatever budget, whatever facilities, and whatever resources they have. Some services don't have gyms. Some services that I've spoken to have said that their service has no obligation to provide you a fitness resource, and that yes, you have to be fit to do the job, but that onus now falls on you once you're hired to maintain your levels. So again, it's just trying to change perspective, change beliefs, change opinions to get that buy-in,
Yeah.
to then impact the greater good of the organization.
One thing that kind of comes to my mind, and obviously this might not be part of the circles that you're in, but as somebody who worked in the gang unit and the amount of people we dealt with that go to the gyms, they don't really work out. They're usually just on their phone, all the bad guys. But the I don't know if I would actually go to a gym now, well, any private gym, because I would run into people constantly. And that's not saying you're necessarily going to be in a fight there, but it's just like I don't want to see bad guy A on my days off. I don't need them to know what I'm doing, what I drive. Like it's just, yeah, if I can avoid that, I'll go to the police station gyms. So that's what I do. I just end up avoiding a lot of the public spaces for those reasons. So it's kind of a downhill effect of the job type I've chosen to be in, but it's just something you kind of learn to accept.
Yeah, I feel that would be a barrier for a lot of individuals. The last thing you want to do is go somewhere to work out, be fit, be active, and then run into individuals that you had to deal with in uniform, right? Like you said, it might not lead to a fight, but it just creates an environment that you most likely don't want to be in. And I think that's one unique thing that we have here at EPS is across our service with our 15 plus fitness facilities, members, sworn and civilian, have access to all of our fitness facilities. Nothing is off limits. Obviously, we have a couple smaller facilities that are kind of our specialty unit areas, like canine and tactical, that just a general member is not going to go to and work out because, again, there are some security challenges with that. But we talk about our Northwest Performance Center. We talk about our other divisions, Northeast, West, Southeast, Southwest, DDIV. Those are readily available and accessible to all of our members. So the fact that we have a service that has that awesome culture and supports our members across the board and wants them to be fit and provides them the resources, I think that's a huge asset. And I think it's something that a lot of services are fighting for across the country. And even if they are providing a fitness center, a lot of times it's very basic in nature. And then the resources that are the people to provide help to members aren't always there.
Yeah. And at least, well, in Canada, we need indoor spaces because it's friggin' cold a lot of the year. But, down south, it's like, I don't know, at least give them a field and some tools to work outside. Like, they've got options. And maybe just to help out our US friends a little more. So just giving that example of like, I don't want to run into gangsters at the gym. But even when I was with the RCMP, they had like a real basic weight room when I was in Okotoks. And it was in their older station at the time, though they got a nice new one now. But, we had a lot of times where you would go out and you would end up arresting your neighbors, right? Like you live in the community that you're dealing with people. So it's not just gangsters, but it's just neighbors or just people that you might see in friend groups or, just acquaintances kind of on the periphery of things. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to then, I arrested guy yesterday and now I go to the gym and see him again. And, it just, all those scenarios are things that I think the general public doesn't have to think about. Maybe the politicians and stuff who provide that funding go like, well, what, you just all want to be models or bodybuilders in there? It's like, no, there are all these other reasons why people end up avoiding the public spaces and the bigger crowds and so on and so forth. So, just to kind of give them some ideas for if they got to make a pitch down there.
No, I've heard some horror stories from members who have ran into some of the situations where they've gone to a Good Life or they've gone to kind of your big box gym and have walked in and saw person A and had to turn around and leave because it just would have created a space and environment that was too much of a risk, right? So again, something we want to try and avoid. We want to try and remove as many barriers as possible to allow members, foreign, civilian, whoever they may be, to engage in fitness and physical activity. So that's one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on here at EPS is we always have an open door policy. Members can always come to our office, can always ask us questions. It's confidential in nature. We're there to help. And if there's a barrier that we can remove, we will do everything in our power to make sure that barrier is removed so that members feel comfortable and able and are willing to come in and work out and be active. Because again, yes, it is very important for the job. Yeah. But on the flip side, that personal well-being, that personal health, that mental health, physical wellness, enjoying time away from the job, friends, family, retirement, those are pieces of the puzzle too that we also need to consider. So we just want our members to be happy and to have a positive relationship with fitness and physical activity. And we know that we're never going to please everybody. Our opinions or training philosophies, they're not going to make everybody happy and not everybody's going to buy into them. But then it's our job to be progressive in nature to go, okay, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do to support you or to provide the resources to you that you're looking for? So it's kind of a unique environment at EPS that we're a part of. And it's pretty cool, like I said, to have the support that we have and to be able to do what we do to support our members.
Retired members can still use the gym, correct?
Yeah. So retirees are permitted to come in and use, I believe, 2 of our EPS facilities, one being our Northwest Campus facility, which is something that's super cool when you look at tactical fitness, strength and conditioning across the country, across North America, or even the world. I presented at a conference and had a member come up to the screen of my PowerPoint and take a picture of our facility because they couldn't believe that it was a police gym. So when you have a 6,300 square foot weight room and a 3,000 square foot cardio space and a 10,000 square foot basketball court and physiology testing labs and classrooms to do spin classes and presentations and mat rooms for tactics and scenario rooms to do room clearing. I mean, we are a service that is really pushing the envelope. And in some of the presentations I've given on some of the work we've done with our units in operational training with tactics, it's just mind-blowing to people, the bridge programs that we have where our unit supports operational training. And I've been engaged from services across the country, Canadian Forces R&D, to speak on these topics, to speak on the work we're doing, because we are really setting the trend in a lot of areas when it comes to operational training and fitness with the opportunities that we have here at EPS.
Cool. Well, you kind of answered my last question. I was going to ask, like, what's coming up next for you? And what do you do at these conferences? So, you kind of covered that. But just as we're coming up to the end of our time here, anything else you think people should know? And then if you want to let them know how to get a hold of you, even through social media, if anything on there, if you want to kind of plug it, feel free.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to your own personal fitness and wellness, right? Taking the first step is usually the hardest. Finding somebody who's qualified, who can do the work properly, who's going to set you up for success. At the end of the day, it's less about the program and more about the person. So you want to find somebody who's going to put something on paper or provide something to you that's going to impact you as an individual, not just try and sell you a program or say, do this because it's the best, right? So you really want to find somebody that's going to cater to you, You want to try and do things that are going to help remove barriers to support your frontline operators. And I know that's not going to be easy for a lot of individuals, but start small, work from there. Be really strong in your justification. Find research, find support that backs up what you're trying to accomplish and are trying to push through. But at the end of the day, it's about the individual. So as a tactical strength and conditioning professional, physical training instructor who works with law enforcement, do your best to support the individual. And if you can support the individual, you're going to create that positive relationship with fitness. You're going to get that buy-in, and it's going to be something that's going to become a lifelong commitment. So that's really what we're looking for. So if you can do that, or you can support your operators in that way, you're going to have a lot of success.
Very cool. Hey, I want to say thanks for coming on the show today. And we'll have to chat in the future because there's always developments in this realm. And I'm always curious about kind of what you guys are up to. So say thanks for being on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always nice to kind of get to chat about tactical fitness, law enforcement fitness. And if people are interested in getting in touch, they can find me on Instagram. And then I'm more than happy to engage with whatever questions people have. I'm more than happy to share what I can. I'm an open book. Nothing's a secret. We're all here to support the same cause and to support first responders, whether that be law enforcement, fire, EMS, and whatever it may be. So if anybody has questions or is looking for more information, I'm more than happy to share.
Cool. And I'll make sure I get the links to any of the social media or websites, anything you got. We'll put those up in the episode description so people can find them. So hang on the line for a second. We'll chat offline. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening in and following along with the discussions. Be sure to click the follow or subscribe button on your respective listening platform. Also, check out the Quiet Professional on X and Instagram under TQP780. And most importantly, please share where you can. Everyone has a part to play in getting these education and information pieces out there, so pass it along. Thanks again.